Hello everybody. Today another Proxmox video. This time it is monitoring all your systems and devices via SNMP and LibreNMS. So I actually do have a LibreNMS set up here on my Proxmox server. However, the installation process is a little bit long-winded and a little bit complicated to a certain degree for people who are starting out or don't know too much Linux and commands such as and such. However, I was able to find a really nice script here which automates the LibreNMS install, and it honestly works wonders. It's really easy to get it set up. Honestly, it's just 3 lines you got to do. Pretty much get a installed script, set it to executable through the chmod command, and then run the actual script. That's how easy it is. So we're going to do that right now real quick. I'm going to show you how I do it on my Proxmox using a container, and it works perfectly fine in a container. The container is very lightweight. You can see here that the container I have has only 2 CPUs and only 2 gigs of RAM. And even then, the 2 gigs of RAM is overkill. And you can see here the memory usage really doesn't exceed 300 megabytes. And the CPU utilization barely, is touched. Even if I do a weekly average, you can see here, it's rising up because I'm adding more and more to it. But in general, very, very little resources are needed to run LibreNMS. So we're going to do that. So first thing, what you would want to do is go to your local store in Proxmox, go to the templates, and make sure you have Ubuntu 20.04 there. I have tested with the latest Ubuntu, which is I think 21, if I'm not mistaken. It should be, 20.10, and it does work fine with that too. But the 20.04 is the LTS release. So for especially, networking and more production type of workloads, I would still say go with the 20.04. It's probably better in the long term, and for support and making sure that there's no issues or bugs like that. So first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to create a container, and we're going to name this container LibreNMS underscore YouTube. Okay, then we're going to go to the password. Set your password here. I don't think it likes that underscore. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go to next, select the Ubuntu template, hit next. For the disk size, feel free to give it whatever you want. For me, in my other machine, I gave it, I think, about 16 gigs, but again, it doesn't really use that much, so 8 gigs is going to should be enough. The beauty with the container LXC containers under Proxmox is you can expand the storage. So start off with 8, and then if you need, you can go up to 16, 32, 64, whatever you wish. We're going to go next. We're going to give it 2 cores. I think 2 cores is overkill as is, but sure, why not? Cores are, plenty these days. For the memory, we're going to give it 1024, which is 1 gigabyte. For the network, it is preferred if you would give it a static IP address. There's many ways to do that. Do not just put a static IP address here. What I would say is go to your router, assign it via MAC address, static IP address. But again, there's many different ways of doing it. If, let's say, for example, you've set your DHCP scope, for example, from 192.168.100 all the way to 255, that's when you could go and set a static IP address for something that's not within that scope, right? So you could set it to 192.168.1.50, for example, right? So that would be the way you would do the static IP addresses here. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to select DHCP. I'm going to hit next. DNS domain servers, just use the host settings. You're going to hit next. And that's pretty much it. Shows you a quick summary. We're just going to hit finish. Give it a couple of seconds. It doesn't take too long, but once you see the task OK here, close out this window, you will see This is the one, the container. Just give it a second, and there we go. LibreNMS YouTube is created. We're going to go to the console and we're going to give it a start. So there's a couple of things that you need to do before you even start installing it, and I found this out the hard way, but I will guide you here. So let's log in with the root account. Okay, done. First things first, we're going to do a apt update. Okay, we want to install LibreNMS on a fully updated system. It's just best practice to do that. Make sure all your packages are updated, your OS is updated. So you can see here that there's 132 packages to update. After you run the update command, you're just going to type in apt upgrade. Okay. It's going to tell you here's the list of the packages that are going to be updated, and it's going to be about 107 megabytes of additional disk usage, and it's going to pull down about 80 megabytes of archives. So we're going to hit enter and get it going. Okay, so this didn't take too much. Probably took less than a minute on my server, but we're done now. So the updates are all done. Next thing, and this is the important thing, is what you want to do is you want to do an IPA, okay, to give you the current IP address of this container. So the IP address for my container was issued as 187. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to Notepad and I'm going to save this temporarily because I will need this number during the install. Okay, so we're going to go to the GitHub page again. Simple copy paste. I did look at the shell script here, and there's nothing malicious in there, so it's fairly straightforward. So we're just going to do that. We're going to give it a copy. We're going to hit paste over here, and we're going to hit enter. And it's a very small shell script, so it downloaded it. Then we're going to do a chmod x. So that's easy. So we're going to do a chmod plus x install.sh. That basically converts that shell script to an executable file, so to speak. And then we're going to run it. So /install.sh. So you can see here that it's going to install LibreNMS and the Nginx web server, which is, I think, a very good combo. Nginx is light, it's performant, it runs very well. And LibreNMS is actually outstanding. Once you get it up and running, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so we're going to hit enter to continue. And again, it's going to download a whole bunch of packages, and dependencies to enable LibreNMS to run. Now, LibreNMS does use, I think, MySQL or MariaDB or of those as a backend database. So it's going to install that for you. It's going to install all the dependencies for the SNMP, Python scripts, PHP. It's going to install Nginx. So it's going to install everything to enable LibreNMS to run. So again, depending on the speed of your computer, this might take a little bit of time, but on my machine, it's fairly quick. And by the way, I get a lot of people asking me what kind of a server I'm running. I'm actually using just common off-the-shelf hardware. I will show you what I'm running. It is a Core i5 11400. I just picked this up recently, not too long ago, maybe I think a week or two ago. It's running on a B460 or B560, I think, Asus motherboard. 64 gigs of RAM, and 2 Intel Ethernet cards. It honestly works outstanding. And you can see that, I've got plenty of containers and VMs running, but it barely, taxes my CPU. I do find that if I'm, doing a lot of intensive stuff, my RAM shoots up, but, I can always upgrade to 128 gigs if I really do want. So, okay. So, yeah, you can see here that it's downloading pretty fast. Everything is all being set up. Okay, so first things first is it's going to prompt you for the time zone. Okay, so just hit enter. It's going to give you the list. You can look through the list by pressing spacebar. I do know exactly where I live. My time zone is going to be New York, so I'm going to hit Q, and it's going to ask you to enter the time zone of your choice. Now, you have to follow the time zone naming nomenclature in Linux. So, make sure you go through that list and write down exactly how it's supposed to be written. So for me, it's going to be America /new _ York, capital York. There we go. Okay, done. Now it's MariaDB. Yep, so it's actually using MariaDB. Now it's going to ask you create a password for LibreNMS database user. So, for the purpose of the YouTube video, we're going to do ABC123. So it's going to use ABC123 as the password for the database. Now, you don't really need that except during install and later on if you're going to use some sort of database tool to look at the database. The second prompt is the Nginx server name, and that's why I copied down this, because you do need this. So it's 192.168.1.187. So 192.168.1.187. And it's going to ask you what the community string is, and I use public for the most part. So we're going to use public. And that's it. And it's going to ask you, the last question is that, do you want to delete all modified and untracked files? You can either say yes, I've done yes and it works fine, or you can say no, the default is the uppercase no, so we're going to leave it as is and hit no. There we go. That's how easy it was. LibreNMS is installed. So it actually tells you here that navigate to the IP address you supplied and install.php in your web browser to finish the installation. So we're going to do that right now. So we're going to copy that. We're going to go to a new tab and we're going to go right there. Interesting. It said file not found. Okay, I think I know that's a small bug, is that you just need to get rid of the install.php. There we go. So yep, get rid of the install.php and it takes you there. So I remember this happened to me. I think I will notify the script owner that there is a bug, but at least it's something that you can fix. So as you can see here, the first button here is these are all the gates you have to go through. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The first gate basically does some pre-install checks. Make sure you have all the prerequisites to install LibreNMS. The script took care of that. You can see here that everything is installed. So we're going to click the second bubble, which is configure the database. This is all pre-populated for you. All you need to do is put in the password you put in for the database during the install script phase. So it was ABC123, check credentials, and you want to say build a database. And there we go. So it is building the database. The database is now built. Everything is done. That's how quick it was. And now we're going to create an admin user and we're going to call it admin, password admin, and then the email, admin@admin.com. Okay. But of course, make sure you use a proper username, a secure password, and put in your email there. We're going to add the user and you can see it's check. It's all done. So all we got to do is hit the checkbox and you can see here, and we're ready to go. That's pretty much it. So validate and install. Again, we're going to log in admin, and we are ready to go. So you can see here, we can add, there's no warnings, everything is there. It can say that there's some warnings here. You can ignore these. Honestly, for the most part, it is completely fine. But that's pretty much it. LibreNMS is installed. It's ready to go. We're going to add a device here. We're going to click this. We're going to go add a device here. And that's how easy it is. So if you want to add a device, the device that you're adding has to have SNMP capabilities. Now, a lot of routers, firewalls, small app servers, your NASes, your devices, appliances, even your servers, you can install SNMP on them, and basically they will expose certain metrics for you. So all you would do is just go into devices, add device, make sure you put the host name there, make sure your SNMP version is there. Usually it's version 1, okay, or version 2C. Version 3 requires you to have login and passwords, right? So it is what it is, but I will give an example of a fully set up LibreNMS, which I have already here. And you can see here, I've got a small little dashboard. And if I go to all devices, you can see I've got a couple of devices here. So, for example, I've got a QNAP NAS. If I click that, you can see here that it's populated all the statistics available to it via SNMP. So you can see here that if I click graphs, you can see the availability graphs, the system graphs, the net stats graphs, the polar, the SNMP polar, basically the graph, the health, again, total overview. You can scroll down. It's just, plenty of graphs here. It's just graph overload, makes you happy. You look at the processor, same thing. These are the same graphs. I think this is maybe 24 hours. That's a 1 week, 1 month, and 1 year, things like that, right? So it basically shows you that way. Memory usage, you can see here. Disk usage, temperature. Again, you can see temperatures, fan speed, the state of them. The RAID, you can see here it's good, ready. You look at the ports here. Again, the LO port, the ETH0 port. You can see the inventory here, some information. This was pre-populated by the QNAP NAS. Logs for the SNMP, you can see here, temperature under thresholds, all these things like that. And any alerts, if there are any, for this particular device, right? So it is really just that easy to set it up. Now, of course, if the graphs are drillable, you can click down, you can click this, you can drill down and see the stats. You can set your own time range here, update, so on and so forth. So it's really, really nice to basically monitor your devices quite easily. Now, one quick thing is, let me go to the QNAP NAS here just for a quick second so I can explain to you something, is that let's take the IP address of the QNAP NAS and we're going to add it to the new one. So I'll show you how you do it. I'm going to use V1 SNMP and the community is going to be public, right? And we're going to add the device. It's added. So you can see here it's added, but it takes a little bit of time for it to probe. So you can see here that devices will be checked for SNMP reachability before being pinged and probed, and then it'll probe it. So if I go to, if I hit back to main thing, see, it's not even showed up yet because it still has to probe it. It's going to take a little bit of time to get it there. But, if I click that link, you can see it here. You can see if I hit F5, it was added only 30 seconds ago, 32, 33 seconds. But you will then see a log saying that it's being probed. Okay, so the probing of it, LibreNMS has a like a cron job, so to speak, to for a probe cycle. So when you first add it and nothing shows up, don't be scared. It does take a little bit of time. You can configure all these settings in the settings over here, but I would say don't touch it. Just let it, do it itself. It's going to be fine. So it takes a couple of minutes, at least in my case, to probe it. But yeah, once it's probed, it'll be completely fine. You can force the probe by going to the gear here and saying rediscover. But again, like I said, give it a minute or two. It will start probing it. And depending on the SNMP information available, the probes do take a little bit of time to populate. And also, SNMP or LibreNMS rather will start collecting data from the minute it's probed. So all past historical data will be doesn't exist. So that's why even after the probing is finished, you will find that the graphs are completely empty. Their graphs are, they look broken. They will say NAN, not applicable, things like that. But that doesn't mean that it's not working. Give it a little bit of time. It will work. So you can see here, there's absolutely no graphs, nothing at all. But if you give it a little bit of time, it will do it. Let's see if I can force it. Say rediscover. Yeah, it'll take a little bit of time, but yeah, you will most probably see the device being probed and all the SNMP information there. So it is really that easy. Okay, we can add another device. I can say localhost. Actually, we'll use the IP address of the SNMP of LibreNMS. So we're going to do that. We're going to do V1 and we're going to do public and add the device. It should add it. Guess not. And I think I know why. There's a couple of firewall things I need to do. But anyways, that's fine. That's something in my internal network. But yeah, you could add localhost there and start seeing LibreNMS's stats. So in my case here, if you go here, I've got LibreNMS itself, the container actually there, and you can see, all the stats are again here. Memory usage, you can see barely it peaks at 1 gig, right? Processor, you can see it's processor's doing nothing. So even that two cores we gave it was overkill, honestly. And you can see here, right? Like the device was added, it was discovered, uptime, all these things, and you can see all sorts of graphs, stats, disk usage, I/O, temperature. Again, because it's a container, it's basically getting the CPU temperature of the host system. Because there's 5 cores here, 0 through 5, which is 6 cores, which of course the container doesn't have. But you can see here, the temperatures, whatnot. All these IOs and everything are all from actually the host machine, right? So again, that's also pretty good. Memory usage, disk usage, I/O, like how much input output's going, temperature of my system. You can see core 0, and you can see the voltages. So it's quite well featured. It's really quick. You can see that with 2 cores and 2 gigs of RAM, system is super duper snappy. It's not slow at all. If I go to, for example, devices, and if I go to my Unraid server, there we go again. So you can see all my Unraid server stats. Really, really nice. I really can't complain much about this. Now, here's one more thing. Just one last thing is that depending on how SNMP is configured on your host device, it will expose certain amount of information, right? So what I'm trying to say is that on a certain device, like if you connect it to a switch, the information that's being exposed is going to be different from, let's say, the information when you pull a server or a NAS or a computer even. So all of these things are completely doable. In fact, you can even set up an SNMP client, or server rather, client actually, on Windows, and have LibreNMS pull your Windows machines and pick up statistics from there. That is completely doable. So again, it's a really, really great resource for you to have, especially in a HomeLab. Kind of, gives you a good idea of the health of your systems. You could probably, diagnose issues like, why is it slow? Maybe there's some disk I/O issues. You can look at the temperature. Hey, maybe the CPU is, really high. That's why it's throttling. Things like that. It's really outstanding for monitoring your system. Let's give a quick look here. There we go. So we refreshed it. You can see here that it's now added, but you can see here what I was talking about, that the processors, if you go to the graphs, they're all unpopulated. Some of them will probably even be broken. You'll see, let's see if we can pick one out. Yeah, like this one, the overview, no data file, right? So, but that doesn't mean it's broken, right? It just means that it's gonna start collecting the information, building those graphs, and then once the data is there, it'll start drawing it. It needs the averages and all these things. You can see here, for example, storage, draw error, because there's nothing. There's no information yet, right? It has to do a couple of poll cycles before it starts getting you the information, right? So again, you can see here, very, very easy to set up, very easy to do. And honestly, I've been using LibreNMS for a couple of weeks now, and it's absolutely outstanding. I don't think I could actually live without it. Anyways, guys, hopefully you liked this video. It was really, really easy to set up, really simple, especially on Proxmox. I'm sure you could do exactly the same thing either on a bare metal machine or, Hyper-V, Zen server or VMware. Any virtualization software will work. Just with Proxmox, I ended up using a container and no issues. Now, just a quick one. Oops. There we go. Like you can see here that although I gave it 1 gigs of RAM, it's only using 280 megabytes. Okay. And the CPU is, look at the load averages. Even with 2 of them, it's nothing, right? So granted, I do have a 11th gen CPU. IPC is good on it and whatnot, but even I think that even on an older CPU, it's going to be completely fine. The beauty of Proxmox, what I said was container. It's working completely fine on a container. Absolutely no issues at all. It works just fine. So yeah, there we go. That's how easy it was. Just one more thing is if you set it up as a static IP, that would probably be better overall. This way, you don't lose your link or any issues in the future. Always try to keep servers like this on a static IP. That is the best practice, whether you're at home or in the enterprise. All right, guys, hopefully you liked this video and this information was helpful. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this.